Okay, so here's where we're at. We're jumping off of the Camaro for a little bit and we're jumping on our 72 Ford F100. What this video is about is basically we put manifold gaskets on here to try to quiet it down a little bit because it was pretty rackety. And this is what it sounds like with the gaskets in. No, I didn't put any gas to it. That just started right up like that. Has a little bit of a lope. You may or may not be able to hear it, but there's actually an exhaust leak at the manifold to exhaust pipe connection. We put a donut in there, but I think the pipe is just a little bit off, so it's leaking a little bit there. And it's leaking at every port on the engine. So today what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make a Band-Aid. We're gonna, it's not really fabric-cobbling, but we're gonna kind of fabric-cobble up an exhaust solution for this FE because I'm trying to make this truck to where we can just take it anywhere we want to go in Aiken. We're going to have the AC working in it again. So that's where we're going. That's what we're doing. Okay, so I now have it in the building. Yes, I have turned the air conditioner on in here because it is brutal hot outside and I'm not going to try to do this job out there. I am not going to be doing it on the lift. So you guys that get mad at me for working on the lift, I'm not going to be using it because the Camaro is still occupying space underneath it and I don't want to move it. So with the air conditioner's running and the truck cooling off, I'm going to come back in after lunch and fix this thing up. I got a couple cool things I want to talk about at the very end of the episode, so stick around for that because we have, I think, bought ourselves a 72 parts truck. We'll cover why at the end. All right, so your first thing you're going to want to do is to take the exhaust pipes off of the manifolds. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can come in from the bottom, but sometimes it's easier to just come in through this opening between the fender and the inner fender. Probably not going to be able to see a ton of that, but I can show you that in just a second. So through this opening here, you can actually access that manifold bolt and possibly take it off. I'm going to try doing it with a combination wrench. First, it's a 5/8 in stock configuration. After 50 years, Lord only knows what you're going to find. It's just off center. Gotta love it. I'm gonna try it with a universal and a socket, a ratchet. There we go. Now these are not super tight. I found the problem. Most of the times when I will do these kind of manifold setups, I will go in after the fact and retighten everything a little later on down the road. Let them heat in, so to speak. You have to be real careful on these inner fenders. They can be really sharp. I keep hoping I can just start taking it off with my hand. There we go. Now, the nuts you see on here are from a kit that I got from the guys at National Parts Depot. This stud on the bottom, when we go and do the rest of the stuff on this truck, that stud's going to have to be replaced because it's almost not there now. And I'll probably take that to the local machine shop, Bo's Machine, that we use over in Augusta, have them remove it. Probably going to have to go up top to take that top one off. See, if I can do it with fingers. Nope. These are actually locking nuts. I don't know if you'll be able to see me doing this. I just need the deep well because the stud sticks out a little too much for me to get a good purchase on it. Can't make this stuff up, folks. Oh. All right, so I got that out of the way. And we've got a cross member in here, so I can lay this over on the cross member. It won't be a problem. There we go. Now I can get in there and come in from the bottom and get the bottom bolts out. And then take out the top bolts. I'm going to be using this, which is an impact with a non-impact socket. Please don't do that. It's very, very dangerous. So there you go. I've warned you. Now I'm going to do what I told you not to do. And no, I'm not wearing safety glasses because I put them on a minute ago and they fogged up so bad I couldn't see what I was doing, making me almost as dangerous, probably more dangerous than I am right now. There's 2 bolts back here at the back on the Ford trucks. Never fear, 9/16 is here. All right, get that back up in there. I'm gonna go for this one first. Now the one over the starter is the one I'm working on first. Believe it or not, I put this in here without an impact and they're stuck. I'm gonna have to get Big Bertha after them. Big Bertha. Now on this one, I have to go in between, at least on this truck, between the brake line and the mount for the brake hose. And I'm going to have to turn the wheels out some. All right, for the last 2 on the bottom, they are just basically underneath each one of these ports. On the 390, 352, 360, your exhaust manifold ports are stacked. The bolt setups for them are. They went to something different on the 428 cover jet where they had an offset bolt off to one side. I think they found that that maybe tightened up a little bit better. I don't know. But in any case, in order to get these off, we're going to have to go up underneath here. You can't see what I'm doing. And I'm going to have to feel. If I can't see, I know you can't see. Leave that one in there for now. Get this one out. Okay, those bottom ones are out. Now I've got to take the top set out. And because of how this thing is, I'm having to do bolt throughs. The threads were all washed out like I said before, so now I'm just going to have to go in and take those loose with 2 wrenches. Whew. This is not standard. I mean, this is a, I guess maybe fabric cobble, some of these guys are going to tell me that I fabric cobbled this. I've got another set of cylinder heads that we're planning on using in this position. We rebuild the engine, we'll put the, I've got a set of truck heads, which are pretty decent performing heads. We'll put those into play whenever we get going again with the engine build. There we go. All right, I'll pull this out and I'll talk about the manifolds before we go back in and do the reset and show you where they've been, how bad they were leaking. These are brand new gaskets. All right, now these gaskets that I'm showing you right now, these are the ones that I just put on here, and that's how bad the leaking was around the manifold gasket itself. Okay, here we go. This is what the manifold looks like. These ports on this side aren't as bad as the driver's side, but they're still not great. So we're going to need to go in and do something with this in order to make it seal up. And I got a product I'm going to be using that's something that you can get down at your local auto parts store if you're having these kind of issues on the manifolds and the cylinder heads on your classic car. One thing I do want to talk to you about and kind of go into on these, and that is if you are running a truck, you will want to make sure that you get the correct gasket set. This gasket set is really nice because it has cutouts to allow you to slot this onto a bolt on the cylinder head to make it a little easier to install. But there's also another thing you need to be advised of too. So when you're installing these on a truck especially, there is a passage over here. This is not into the inside of the manifold. This block is not, but that screw will be affecting what's going on with your header gasket. So what you want to do is to make sure you get the one with the cutouts here, and if you can find a set, the ones with the cutout here. Now briefly, I'm going to talk about other solutions for this problem. They do have a couple companies out there that are making exhaust gaskets that are guaranteed supposedly to seal against this kind of a manifold issue that we've got going on with this truck, where we have a poor sealing surface with these manifolds. Ideally, what I would do is I would take these manifolds down to a local machine shop, have them grind them down just enough to get them flat. Yes, you can do this if you have a large piece of granite. Most of us out here in the world do not. When we go back in and do the rebuild on this engine, we will be resurfacing these manifolds to make them to where they fit up correctly so that our gasket will work. This is why you use gaskets. A lot of times back in the day, they didn't put gaskets on here because it was a mating surface. There's a machine surface on the cylinder head and a machine surface on the manifold. But enough about that. The next thing I'm going to talk about is what I do in order to make these things a little easier to install. These log manifolds aren't that bad. They're not that heavy. But a thing that you can do that will make your life a little bit easier is you can take a bolt, cut the head off the bolt, put a screw slot in the top of the bolt in case it's a little tough to get out. And this will allow you to go with this smaller port on the manifold, get this one started and this one started with the manifold gasket in place. And you'll see the slots correspond. You'll be able to slide this gasket down onto that slot and you should be good to go with that. And then you can pull that out with a flat blade screwdriver. That's that. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about cleaning these things up. This is not fabricable. This is actually something a lot of guys will do if you've got a sealing problem and you just don't have a way to get around it. Keep in mind, I'm not keeping it this way. I'm just using the product I'm going to be showing you in just a second in order to just give me a little bit of time for the rebuild on our 390. That may be 2 months, it may be 6 months, it may be 2.5 years from now, who knows. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my acetone, pop the cap on it, if it'll pop. And I'm just using standard acetone that I got at Home Improvement Center. Douse my rag. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves on this because I don't want to get the acetone on my skin. What I'm wanting to do is to get this mating surface clean and dry, and that's what the acetone is for. I've already ground down these faces before when I did the initial install, but you'll want to make sure you get all of the old gasket. If there's gasket material on here, you want to get all that off before you go to final with this. It's okay if a little bit's hard stuck to it, but any kind of grease, stuff like that, it's just going to make it where they don't seal up real well. And the gloves keeps your oily hands off of it. Always do this in a well-ventilated area. A couple of these ports are pretty chewed up around the top edges here, or rather the bottom edges on it. Doesn't matter, they're just chewed up, and that's probably causing some of my leak issues. I'm hoping this will work. Never know, we may have a screwed up cylinder head as well. But some of these ports are pretty badly abused. This one in particular has got some real issues down on the very end and in this top corner here, or bottom corner. This corner, be it top or bottom, has some problems. These are available, these manifolds are available in the aftermarket. Dorman makes a set of them, so you can actually get those brand new if you want. Now I'm going to clean up my gaskets. You're like, why are you cleaning the gaskets up? Well, because I looked locally, and I can't find these gaskets locally. I can order them from out of town, but I can't get them here locally. Thus, why we are where we are. I'm going to make sure both sides of this are clean, and then I'll also go over and clean the cylinder head off as well. FEs are notorious for throwing oil all over the place. So I want to make sure I get a good seating surface for these. All right, so what we're going to end up with. All right, so these manifolds are marked for side. Right here it says manifold side. So we'll just flip that way, and that's how they're going to sit in the truck. Then we'll go in and put in at least one bolt here, and then the other one in here, so that we have a full resting spot for everything. But I got to get the sealer in here. All right, here we go. So we have our manifold set up and ready to go. This is the product that we're going to be using. This is called Right Stuff. It is a 90-minute gasket maker, and this is the red that they have. This stuff's good to about 650 degrees, so I'm hoping this will seal this thing up just right and make everything work the way I want it to work. I've already cut my tube, so I'm going to go ahead and pull some down in there. Get going toward the end of it. I am terrible at this sort of thing. Cam is much better at this, but he is not able to be here today. So those of you looking out for Cam, he is not available. Now this is the side that faces the cylinder head, which there are some problems on that cylinder head, cracks and whatnot. To get this as close to the ports as you can. One tube should be enough to do the entire truck. Okay, now I'll let that sit there and puke everywhere like they do. I'm going to place this on the manifold. Theoretically, it should seat enough for me to be able to place it on the cylinder head in the truck. All right. Now you know why I wore gloves. Don't touch your face. This is almost like never sees. Off we go. All right, so I've got everything set up. I have a piece of old inner tube on top of my battery. If you don't want to take your battery out of the car, I mean, you might want to because it gives you a little more room to work. But if you don't want to do it, put a piece of rubber up here because believe me, that battery will shock you if you ground yourself to the chassis. I had it happen the other day when I was working on it. I thought, oh, I'm having some kind of pain in my side. And I was sweaty enough and contacting the block well enough that I got a tickle from the battery. So I put this piece of inner tube on here to set that so it doesn't cause a problem. I've got my studs in place on the bottom of the manifold. I'm hoping that'll do me well enough that I can get a bolt in the bottom on one of them and a bolt in the top to hold it in place until I can actually get in there and fully tighten everything in a couple of seconds. I was going to have to move really quick here. I'm not going to be able to show you everything, but I showed you the good points on pulling the thing out. All that is basically reversed. whenever you're putting the manifold back in. Biggest thing you don't want to do is to knock your sealer off of the manifold. And boy, howdy, everything in here is going to want to try to do that. Like it just did on the back one. Okay, get that one on there. No, not there we go. On the bottom of it. The problem I'm having right now is the exhaust pipe is contacting the bottom of the header pipe. There we go. Now he's up in there. All right, I need to grab a bolt. And like I said, because of how this thing is right now, I'm just through bolting onto it. I think the manifold. There we go. And I'm using a lock washer and a nut, because you can't use a nylock on this, it just gets too hot. Get that tightened down enough so it just sits there. Grab another washer assembly and nut and try to get that back one to bolt up as well. Hopefully there's still enough sealer on there for it to hold in place. Yep, dropped it. Sometimes with this stuff, I think you have to have an arm growing out of the middle of your chest, like one of those aliens from Star Trek. I think that was actually in the cartoon series. I'm running out of spares. Another one just hit the floor. And I'm using standard bolts on the bottom side to hold the lower bolt in. This is basically almost like a stock bolt setup. I'm going to try to get one on either end in here. Don't know that that one's sitting right. I'm not tightening the top one up, or the bottom one on the front up all the way yet, because I want to go in and put the back one in, and I want to have that mobility of the exhaust manifold in order for this to hopefully be able to mount that back bolt. Plus, I'm going to need to be able to get the center ones out. But I'm running out of time because it's a 90-minute set. You're not going to get to see this part. A few minutes later. All right, the one thing I will say about this is you'll need to get a new set of donuts for the manifolds that go in this location back here. The use of these donuts are not reusable. You're probably going to have them ordered and brought into the store you're at, unless you're at a lucky location that's close to the warehouse, or you'll have to order some from like National Parts Depot. I'm still not sure this thing's fully set up the way it needs to be as far as the pipe to the manifold itself. I think we're pretty tight on everything else, but I can't test this until tomorrow. I don't want to. It's a 90-minute set time, but I really want to wait until we can get a little bit more time on this just to see where we're going to end up with it. All right, you see that bolt-in frame right there in the dead center? That bolt cannot be accessed from the inner fender with the tires turned out like we did on the passenger side. That bolt has to be accessed from underneath. So you have to kind of scroll your arm up in there with a deep well socket. It will not come out with a shallow well. Basically, the longer your ratchet driver is, the better off you're going to be. All right, your two best friends in this job are going to be a closed combination wrench and a ratcheting combination wrench for what I'm doing here. If your bolts are still there, then you don't have to worry about it. You only need the ratcheting combination to get it that one way back there in the back. It is in a bad spot. If you have the washer bottle in play, you're going to want to remove the washer bottle so you can get to all the stuff that's in here. So I'm going to just take these out off camera because it's pretty boring stuff. Definitely going to have to fix that alternator screw. All right, well, that's our show for this week, folks. Be sure to be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Autorestomod. Now, there will be more coming in the next few weeks on this truck. We will be working on this for about 4 to 5 weeks. We're trying to make the truck as nice as we can possibly make it. Short of possibly getting the seat recovered, we're going to be working with National Parts Depot on getting this seat redone to look like a 1972 F100 seat. So that's coming, but probably not for a few more weeks because we're going to have to get that done by the company that National Parts Depot uses for their upholstery. So that's coming as well. We're going to put a speedo cable in. We'll show you how you do that. We're going to go in and do just a bunch of things. Try to get this cab back into a condition to where it looks like a nice interior on a truck, even though the outside of the truck is not super great. So coming up, more F100 stuff for the next few weeks. They're going to be jumping on the 72 Mach 1 after that. So you guys with the Mustangs, looking forward to that kind of stuff. It's coming. Be ready. Well, I guess I take everything down and take it out for a drive to go get some pegboard. Yeehaw.